Two headlines that I saw this weekend. The first is from Deadline. We Are the World. Michael dancing past Hunger Games and Twilight sequels to become Lionsgate biggest global pick ever. Says Deadline, you know it's a great summer when a myriad of studios are hitting all-time company records at the global box office. Lionsgate, which fired up the heat wave this season with the Antoine Fuqua-directed Michael, with a $97.2 million domestic and a $217.4 million worldwide start, will see the Michael Jackson biopic become its highest-grossing movie ever. I'm sure they've surpassed that now by a long shot because that data doesn't include what happened this weekend. At the same time, from the LA Times, there is this. More than 20 years after Michael Jackson was acquitted on charges of child molestation and 2 months since the global superstar's record-breaking biopic skirted any mention of abuse allegations, a new Netflix docuseries brings his trial and the aftermath to the foreground. It's called Michael Jackson, The Verdict, a 3-part documentary directed by Nick Green, released last Wednesday. It chronicles his 2005 trial in Santa Maria that began with a search raid of the pop star's sprawling Neverland Ranch and ended with a jury finding him not guilty on 10 counts, including 4 counts of child molestation. At the center of the case was Gavin Arvizo, a then 15-year-old cancer survivor from Los Angeles. There's a 1-minute trailer for the Netflix special. It sounds and looks like this.
And this is Mr. Jackson's main area? Are there any secret rooms?
Police right now searching Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch.
This is part of an ongoing investigation.
Michael said, how do innocent people leave the courthouse? They let the whole world see them.
This was a man who was unique in his talent, skill, and accomplishment, and unique in his victimization of children.
When the supposed victim was on the stand, the thing that struck me was, wow, he's just a kid.
It was very moving testimony. It really got to me. He lured young boys to Neverland.
The kids knew the combination to the bedroom suite. Their mother didn't.
The defense said Michael Jackson loves children. It's all been misconstrued.
Diane Dimond, I think, is the star of the show. She's the glue that holds it together for all 3 parts. She's enjoyed an award-winning career in radio, television, and print. Perhaps best known for breaking the story of child molestation allegations against Michael Jackson in late 1993, then did it again in 2003, and following the story through the entertainer's criminal trial in 2005. Her best-selling book, Be Careful Who You Love, Inside the Michael Jackson Case. Diane, thank you so much for coming back to the program. I really appreciate it. Can we talk about your notebooks? Because I was fascinated as I watched you thumbing through all tabbed and annotated diaries, right, that you kept through the whole saga?
Yeah. Beginning in 1993, all the way through all of the testimony during the trial, even jury selection. I take copious notes. You might have noticed they zoomed in on some of my bad handwriting.
How did it first land on your radar screen back in 93?
Well, I worked for the television show Hard Copy, syndicated show nationwide, but the local station in Los Angeles had some video of cops going into Michael Jackson's apartment in LA and taking out boxes that said evidence. And my boss told me, go figure this out. I was a crime and justice reporter, so it was up to me to figure it out. And just a stroke of luck, I got a cold call from somebody who said, meet me at this Italian restaurant in Santa Monica, and I'll tell you why they raided that place. And they also raided the ranch at the same time. And this source gave me the child welfare report and the police report outlining everything about the first accuser, and that young boy's name was Jordy Chandler. So we broke it in 93. 10 years go by. I get another call. There's going to be a raid at Neverland, 2003. And I'm the only one standing outside Neverland early one morning as this phalanx of police vehicles come in to raid the ranch again.
And from 93 until now, I mean, you've never been off the story.
No, it's like the story I can't get rid of. I have this whole body of work. I have a new book out last year about something completely different, but this is the one story that just sticks.
The part of the story in the Netflix documentary, I'd heard of it. I don't think I'd seen the footage of it, but the part of it that really sticks with you, at least with me, is the way in which you get to that lair of Michael Jackson. In other words, you've got to go through a door, and the door's got a keypad on it, and the boys know the keypad combination, but nobody else has it, and then you go up a staircase, and then finally there is the king-sized bed.
With sequined cover and a portrait overhead at the head of the bed, which looks like the Last Supper, and in the Christ position is painted Michael Jackson's face. So like in the case of the second boy that went so public, Gavin Arvizo, he was a good Catholic boy. The Last Supper, Christ, and he's in the bed and he looks up and he sees Michael Jackson's face where Christ should be. I've just always thought of that image.
It's the Arvizo case. It's the Arvizo case that is sort of the backbone of this 3-part Netflix documentary. By the way, when you obviously you cooperated and your interviews, I mean it when I say were a very key part, I think, of the appeal of this.
Oh.
Did part of Diane Dimond say, well, come on, we've told the story so many times, who's going to want to watch it yet again? And yet, I told you, it's the #1 show at Netflix right now.
Yeah, but you see, Michael, nobody saw what went on in that courtroom. The public did not see there were no cameras allowed. And so as much as I would like to put this in my rearview mirror, I've always thought putting the trial on trial was the one piece of this Michael Jackson puzzle that the public never really knew what happened. They didn't know that Jordy Chandler's mother came and testified and told the court that how she had been bamboozled by Michael Jackson to allow her son to sleep with him. She got lots of jewelry and lots of reasons, and it was very interesting testimony. There was a maid who testified that her young son had been sexually abused. That boy, Jason Francia, came forward and testified in court. There were maids who told about seeing Michael Jackson in the shower with young boys, finding little underwear in the bottom of the jacuzzi when they cleaned it out. There was a security guard, Ralph Chacon was his name, who testified that he saw Michael Jackson and a 11 or 12-year-old boy with Michael Jackson performing oral sex on the boy at night near the swimming pool in the showers. The public did not realize, I don't believe, how much negative testimony there was against Michael Jackson. Oh, and that's to say nothing of Gavin Arvizo's testimony and his brother, Star Arvizo, who testified that he saw Michael Jackson masturbating his passed out brother who had been given alcohol. So, when you added it all up, again, I just thought it was the piece of the puzzle that the public just never realized how much testimony had been given.
Right in my backyard, Pennsylvania's #1 casino. I'm talking Parx Casino. And what a lineup they have. Whatever you're looking for in terms of entertainment, all summer long and into the fall. Tickets available for so many headliners. There's a McCartney live tribute show on June 20th. Comedian Tommy Chong from Cheech and Chong coming. Roger Daltrey from The Who. The classic rock sounds of America. That's October 31st. Kiss frontman Gene Simmons with his own band, the Gene Simmons Band. Comedian Ben Bankus, George Thorogood and the Destroyers. On August 28, magician Michael Carbonaro, comedian Michelle Wolf, all at Parx Casino. Get out, mingle, drink, eat, gamble, watch great entertainment. It's PARXcasino.com to buy your tickets. Parx Casino, Pennsylvania's #1 casino. You got to be 21. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. I know you have a lot of choices when it comes to YouTube. Please consider subscribing to this channel because it's unlike any other. Every day we're putting out great content. It might be front page newsmakers like today, John Fetterman. It might be somebody from the arts. It might be a rock star. I'm into everything and constantly providing you with great content here on my YouTube channel. Look, I guess there are no spoiler alerts here because people know how the trial ended. Michael Jackson was acquitted. I was thoroughly underwhelmed, especially with one of the jurors who just seemed so starstruck with Michael Jackson. And Diane, another case that you and I have often discussed and you reported on and covered closely, the O.J. case, it reminded me of the O.J. jury in that I thought there was nothing that could have been presented that would have caused that jury to convict Michael Jackson.
Well, exactly. And I was struck by that juror that you mentioned, too. She, all these years later, 21 years later, still gushes about the first time she saw Michael in the courtroom. And after the verdict, we locked eyes and he said, "Thank you." It just sort of solidified what I always thought. Look, these jurors sat in a relatively small courtroom with a superstar, their most famous neighbor, for 5 months. And they watched him, strut in the beginning. And as time went on, he got more and more frail. And, he shows up in his pajamas one day, late for court, because he's been in the hospital getting drugs. And the sympathy that poured out of the jurors' faces every time he walked in made me think, oh, boy, I'm not sure they're ever going to get a conviction in this case, and they didn't.
So let me go back to where I started with Diane Dimond. It's great to see you, and thank you so much for being here yet again. I'm
My pleasure.
So excited to have you back on the program. I mentioned at the outset, not the Netflix documentary, but the movie and how it has set records for Lionsgate. And I see that headline, and I say to myself, wow, like who's flocking to see this movie? And I know it's a global audience, and don't they remember? Yeah. And then, Diane, I catch myself this weekend driving around, listening to the 70s on 7, right here on Sirius XM. I think the song was ABC, an old Jackson 5s, and I find myself turning it up. So I don't know, like what's the difference between me loving the music and listening to it and the people who are paying to go watch that movie?
Nothing. I mean, we can admire the craft, the art, and realize that the person giving us that gift was flawed. You can't do that. I hail from New Mexico. I had a favorite artist there, and I collected his artwork. And only after he died did I realize the FBI had a file on him this thick for molesting Navajo boys. And now I'm stuck with all this art. Do I throw it away? Do we throw Michael's music away? No, it brings joy. And I think the music is the attraction of this biopic. I have not seen it. I don't intend to donate any more money to the estate that's now worth more than $1 billion. But I think he's larger than life until, when does the movie end? 1988.
Right.
That's from his childhood to 1988, that's the biopic story. Well, as you and I both know, that's not the whole story of Michael Jackson's life.
Right. And Diane, perhaps isn't there a sequel planned? They will have to deal with this subject matter. And who plays Diane Dimond in the movie?
Oh, I haven't thought that far ahead. Yeah, there's a rumor. I think the fans, the really zealot fans, perpetuate this stuff. Yeah, there's going to be a sequel. I'm not so sure. I'm not a betting woman, but I would bet there isn't going to be a sequel because they'd have to bring up the allegations. So, and who would play me? I don't know. I have no idea.
So you mentioned
that seems odd.
You mentioned the fans, and maybe you've already answered this question, because when you watch the 3-part documentary, you see the fans who were in Santa Maria every day, dressing like Michael Jackson, holding signs for Michael Jackson, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm watching this on television these many years later, and I'm saying, my God, this blind devotion, don't they know what he was doing? Don't they know about all the testimony? And maybe it's because it was a small courtroom, there weren't cameras in it, and people were oblivious to the evidence. I don't know. How do you square the devotion outside?
Oh, boy, that's a good question. I get an awful lot of hate mail from these devoted fans. And it seems to me that they're young, very young. I think these are the people going to the biopic. They love the music. They cannot imagine the ugliness of life because they're so young or they're so disaffected. There were some people there every day, screaming at me because our position was out in the parking lot. That's where we broadcast live from. And they were older people, but they were odd. I don't want to disparage anybody, but they had blue and green hair and they dressed like Michael Jackson and they were overweight or disaffected or, screaming across the street at nobody. And I thought to myself, some of these people might be mentally ill, but that wasn't my story to cover. So I look at today's fan base and I don't know, is it the same type of people? All very young, disassociated from life. They need something to cling on to that they perceive as good and childlike. Maybe they didn't have good childhoods, maybe, who knows?
Diane,
who knows? But
the MO was.
Can I tell you one more thing?
Yeah, please tell me.
Can I tell you one more thing?
Yeah.
Outside the courtroom, there was this huge mass of pro-Jackson people, but there was also a group, smaller, of child sexual abuse victims, survivors. And there were clashes between the two. But I hear an awful lot, even today, from people who say that they were survivors of childhood sexual abuse. And thank you, Diane, for covering this story. So that's the other side that doesn't really get any attention.
The MO was the same, right? Whether it was Jordy Chandler, whether it was the Arvizos, whether there were other instances, one that I'm going to bring up to you in a moment, but he would ingratiate himself with the family, win over the parents, and pretty much shame them into, how could you not allow me to spend time with your child, and even share my bed with them?
Right. That was the MO, especially with Jordy Chandler and June Chandler's testimony. I mean, it's out there online. Go and read it, everybody. It was so powerful to hear the words he uttered to her to get her to say, oh, I am being too suspicious. Shame on me. Of course, Michael, you and Jordy can spend all the time together you want. The thing that I remember about June Chandler's testimony was, I think the prosecutor said, when was the last time you talked to your son? And she said tearfully, 11 years ago. So her son realized, you farmed me out, Mom, and he cut off all ties. Now, I understand they have a relationship today, but it took a lot of work. So anyway, I just throw that out there.
I want to read to you a couple of graphs from a recent story in the New York Times. In December of 2010, Oprah Winfrey invited Dominic and Connie Casio and 3 of their 5 children onto her talk show to discuss Michael Jackson. The pop star and Dominic, a manager of a Manhattan hotel where Mr. Jackson often stayed, had become good friends. For more than 2 decades, Mr. Jackson had eaten at the Casio's New Jersey home, brought them to his Neverland Ranch, took them on tours around the world, celebrated with them on holidays. They had become, as they often said, Mr. Jackson's second family. So a year and a half after his death, the family came forward to talk to Oprah at length about their special relationship and also to shield their friend from the ugly sexual abuse accusations that had long trailed him. There were never any improprieties with Michael Jackson, so they told Oprah Winfrey. They responded in unison, never. Their friend Michael, Eddie asserted, was a target. Well, more than 15 years later, that family now says it was a lie. All 5 of the Casio children say they were groomed to protect Mr. Jackson and became, as they call it, his soldiers, the front line of his defense. Your reaction to this story?
They also say they were victims of sexual abuse at the hands of Michael Jackson. 4 sons, even the daughter. We can go into their allegations if you like, but yes, they have flipped, so to speak. And the response from the estate is, oh, well, they're just after money. Everybody's just after money. Michael, it's really hard for someone, a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, to come forward and spew it out to the public. It's really hard. Now, are the Casios out for money? Well, they already got a big payout earlier. Now they want more millions of dollars. So it taints them. It does taint them. Geordie Chandler's father wanted money and a screenplay production agreement with Michael Jackson. Instead of going to the police, they go to members of the media and tell this story all these years later. What are we to believe? Well, I will tell you, in 1993, right after I broke the story on hard copy, we got some footage in from Mexico. Michael Jackson had just left on his world tour starting in Mexico, but he canceled the concerts because he had a bad toothache. We got footage of Michael Jackson walking in the streets of Mexico with 2 little boys. They were dressed like him. And I said, who are these kids? We zoomed in on the T-shirt of one of them, and it said, Aldo's Restaurant, Franklin Lakes, New Jersey. I got on a plane. I went to Franklin Lakes, New Jersey, to that restaurant, and the walls were lined with pictures of Michael Jackson and these boys, the ones I'd seen in Mexico. I went to the Casio house. The parents were both in the house. They talked to me through a speaker. I said, you know the allegations, and your children are with him in a foreign country? They said, oh, yeah, we're not worried. Well, if I had been the parent of those 2 young boys, I would have been worried. After hearing what had been reported by the media worldwide, I would have gone and gotten my kids, but they didn't. So this is the trance that many of these parents are put in, that everything is fine. He's Michael Jackson. What could go wrong? Of course, we're going to sleep in the bed. We're going to have like a sleepover with cookies and milk, and I'll play a little music. I'll read him a story. Everything will be fine until it isn't.
Diane, what was the backstory that the father worked at a hotel in Midtown, Michael Jackson stayed
Yes.
there, got to know the guy, and then he just goes home with him?
Well, it was the Helmsley Palace.
Okay.
That's where Dominic Casio worked. And he said, oh, Michael, one day, according to my sources, he said, oh, I have a couple little boys who would love to meet you. And Michael said, okay. And it came to pass that he would go and stay with the Casios. I don't know where he slept. I don't know anything about what went on in that home. But he was there a lot, spending weeks at a time, going to local toy stores and restaurants with the kids. And then, of course, they had more and more children, mostly boys.
The shoes are still dropping, I guess is the point that we both want to make, right? The shoes are still, there are revelations coming forward. And just a final subject, because you've touched on it. So the estate is more robust than ever because people continue to listen to the music and go to the movie, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they're still defending against these actions.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Michael Jackson is looked upon by many of his fans as Christ-like.
Right.
He can do no wrong. How dare you say that? It's a sacrilege. The estate, well, number one, Michael Jackson isn't around to overspend the way he used to overspend, but some very astute lawyers in Hollywood, John Branca among them at the head, figured out ways for the estate to make money. There's a Broadway show. There's a new biopic. I think there was a Cirque du Soleil, something in Vegas at one point. They've reissued music. The fans, they've admitted this online. I found it amazing. They set Michael Jackson music to play all day long, even while they sleep. This legion of fans. So his music has now risen on the charts again. So he's like number one because there are so many new plays of his music. So yeah, the estate is burgeoning. It's overflowing with money. But even Paris Jackson, his daughter, has said of the biopic, this is a fantasy. This is just made to make money from the fans who think he can do no wrong.
Wow.
I tend to agree with her.
Your book, Be Careful Who You Love, Inside the Michael Jackson Case. Diane, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for coming back. And I really appreciate all the work you've done over these many years on this case.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Love
talking to you.
Me too. Diane Dimond, ladies and gentlemen, she's enjoyed an award-winning career in radio, television, and print. Have you watched TC any of the?
I've watched two. I watched
two of the three
last night, and it got me from the opening. From the opening, which she described as like you walk through the house and then you walk upstairs and you walk up that little stairway and there's that bed and it's all shiny, all glittery silver. so incredibly creepy. And by the way, there's also pornography, and so it's not like this is not
everybody.
There's no question.
Everybody
you watch
who
that and
worked
you're like, oh, there's no question.
No question.
No question.
No question at all.
No
and yet
question at all.
that juror who was just infatuated with him and tapping their toes to his music so forth. The prosecutors never had a shot. Prosecutors never had a shot. Tons of testimony came in. I didn't realize until I watched this special how much was provided by the household staff.
I didn't either.
They all knew exactly what the hell was going on.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is so worth watching. And I, like you, was thinking as I turned it on, like, I'm not going to learn anything.
I've heard it before.
Within a minute, I was like, what? Wait, what? What am I seeing?
Yeah.
Totally worth watching.
So
and
there
she
you
was
go.
extraordinary.
Diane's the best.
Come on.
Diane is the bomb. She pulls no punches.
Yep.
And you'll see a lot of footage of her just leafing through and reading aloud from her notebooks.
Institutional knowledge. She was there.
From covering.
She was there.
Nobody knows the case the way that she does.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the request is.
Are you still listening to the music?
If you want to wait, I am. Am I?
No, that's a question.
I mean, I'm acknowledging my hypocrisy. I'm listening to I don't go looking for it, but I don't turn it off.
Yeah, but it's so different. But listen, it's so different because you and I often talk about politics and whether politics should affect who you listen to or artistry. This is child molestation. I'm with you. I listen to it too. But part of me is like, should I be listening to this?
I'm trying to differentiate me listening to the 70s on 7 and a Jackson 5 song comes on and I'm turning it up. I'm trying to distinguish myself from those who are paying money to go see the Michael Jackson movie, which has set worldwide records for Lionsgate.
There's no difference, Michael.
I don't think there's a difference.
There's no difference.
I don't think me reaching for the volume or somebody who's paying money. But here's my question, my invitation. Have you gone to see the movie? And how do you justify it? I mean, I'm listening to the music, so I guess I'm no better. I guess TC's right. Michael stands at hundreds of millions of well north of 508 million abroad. Who has seen the movie? Plenty of you have.